At the NAFB convention in Kansas City, and our broadcast being brought to you in part by Annabis Silo of Durand, the Animal Wellness Center of Buffalo Valley, the Ann Thompson Insurance Agency of Mondovi, BASF, Growth Energy, and Comrose Sales and Service. Joining us right now is Dale Moore. He's Executive Director, Public Policy with the American Farm Bureau Federation, and we're going to talk a little bit about all the changes in Congress coming up. And Dale, thanks for joining us today. Obviously, with the midterm elections, we're going to have some big changes come January.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot of changes. We're going to have a lot of new chairpersons in the House and the Senate. There's a number of those either term limits that they impose on themselves relative to the chairs on the House side, for example. And then obviously with the majority flipping in the Senate, a number of new chairs coming in, a number of folks, familiar faces to a lot of farmers and ranchers out across the country. We're pretty excited about the men and women that we've been working with for years. Now they're kind of changing roles a little bit, but we expect that they're going to continue to be good, strong champions for us.
How do you think farm policy is going to be affected? We kind of have the Farm Bill done. Obviously, there might be some tweaks, but do you expect any big changes with that?
Well, yeah, I look at the Farm Bill. I've been through 7 of them working in Washington. I look at them kind of like the Olympics. They come around every 5 years. The Farm Bill is done. Now, there may be some tweaks here and there. We've not really seen or heard of anything that is a major problem relative to USDA's implementation. Frankly, most of the focus, particularly on the Title I programs and on the crop insurance provisions, is how are they being implemented? What do farmer and ranchers need to know so they can sign up? And it's a process. It's a long, kind of drawn-out process, made necessary by all the different options, all the different safety net provisions that farmers and ranchers have. So no, I don't expect a lot of focus and change on that, but I do tell you, when we look at both the House and Senate agriculture committees, the appropriators, we anticipate that EPA is going to get a lot of opportunity to come up and explain themselves.
Is that really going to be the biggest thing is EPA, and with not just the waters of the U.S. rule, but the RFS rules and all of that stuff?
Well, one of my friends a long time ago pointed out, there are agencies in Washington that affect the bottom line, like, the tax provisions, like the Farm Bill provisions. And then there are the agencies that affect your ability to stay in business, period. And that's what we see with, EPA, whether it's on the air issues, on the water quality issues like Waters of the U.S., or now we've got ongoing things with just endangered species. I mean, you pick an issue, and it seems pretty clear that the folks at EPA would much rather regulate farmers and ranchers, my impression is out of business, but certainly want to tell them what to do when they get up in the morning and when to go to bed at night and everything in between. And our members don't quite agree with that. And we are hopeful and expecting that the House and Senate Ag Committees are going to make it clear that they don't agree either.
Along with that, I know that there's a lot of folks that after the initial election, there was all this euphoria if you're a Republican about, well, we're going to change this, we're going to change that, we're going to change the other thing. Everyone kind of forgot about the old schoolhouse rock, I'm just a bill, and about, well, everybody in Congress can vote yes, but the president can vote no. Is that something that everybody has to also take a step back and say, guess what, we're still going to have to deal with a White House that may say, sorry, I don't like it, and that's called a veto?
Well, there's a couple things. One, yes, they've got to deal with the president, and more to the point, or just as important, the president has got to deal with them. It's not a kind of a 3-sided triangle with him controlling 2 of the angles now. The Republicans have the House and the Senate. The president obviously is needed by them to get a law enacted, unless they can get the 2/3, which is going to be a challenge on any given day. But when you step back and look at it, what I'm hopeful for, I'm kind of a glass half full guy. I see a majority on the Hill that wants to prove they can govern. They want to prove that, from their perspective, the American people are right in putting them in the majorities on both sides. The president also wants to prove that, hey, I can get things done. Republican, Democrat, Congress doesn't matter to me. I will work with folks. They both sides of the process got some proving to do, and that's what we're praying for, what we're hoping for.
Is there any concern as well, our last final question, any concern about, again, the Democrats in the Senate, Harry Reid decides, you know what, I got so many filibusters, it's time, I'm gonna play that game now. And every time a bill comes up, any type of bill, paper clips shall be orange, Harry Reid's calling up Mitch McConnell going, Mitch, Harry, filibuster. How does it feel? Have a nice day. Click.
Well, I think you have to take a little bit of this to keep in mind that Mr. Reed is not a stranger to being on the minority side and to playing the same game. This is one of those games like when the kids used to play slap the hands, get on top of each other, brother and sister thing. Well, I'm looking at it that both of them are going to have to work together because Mr. Reed, like Mr. McConnell, like their counterparts on the House side, they want to show folks that, hey, he in particular, you put the wrong folks in charge of the Senate. You need to put us back in charge. You don't do that by just continuing to prove that you can throw bigger wrenches than the previous process threw wrenches. You show it by showing leadership on taking issues, moving forward, working with your colleagues on the other side of the aisle, back and forth, get something done.
It's all that everybody wants to happen. Unfortunately, I am not the half full guy. I am the 3/4 empty guy. I will be the first to admit that I just have a bad feeling unless they go back to the old style of where you have to sit on the floor to filibuster and keep talking and keep dancing, that we're just going to see the same thing over and over again.
Well, it is something one of my mentors a long time ago told me, as frustrating as this process is, I worked on the House side for a while, still haven't quite figured the Senate process out. And I would say, he kept reminding me that our founding fathers had an idea in mind. They didn't want this process to be easy. They didn't want any one particular individual to be able to control the decisions made in the country. And I think they wanted it to be a loud, noisy process. And I think the last couple of Congresses has proved, we can be loud and noisy, and now we just need to get something done.
And have all the adults show up to the party, too, as well. Well, again, Dale, we appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Dale Moore, Executive Director of Public Policy with the National American Farm Bureau Federation. I'm Brian Winnikins from Kansas.